Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode whisks us away to the Cabinet Mountains, which cross the Idaho and Montana borders. The elevation of this mountain range varies between 2,000 feet along the Kootenai River in Idaho and 8,740 feet on the range's highest point, Snowshoe Peak. The Cabinet Yaak Mountain ecosystem covers about 2,600 square miles and has been labeled as a grizzly bear recovery zone, according to the Vital Ground Foundation website. In this mountain system, forests of hemlock, pine, fir, and spruce trees, with birch trees, grow along bodies of water. The primitive forests here are nearly pristine and have been well preserved, making it a great place to learn about the 50 grizzly bears that roam the mountain range. Deer, elk, and moose are common prey for the predators here, which include cougars, wolves, coyotes, and black bears, as well as grizzly bears. Along the drainage of Poorman Creek, just south of Libby, 28-year-old Amber Kornak was tasked with checking the grizzly hair collection stations. These stations are built out of barbed wire, which snags the hair as bears rub against it. This allows for the compilation of a DNA database of bears in the area and is critical to studying the bears. Wayne Kasworm worked as a biologist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and had hired Amber for temporary seasonal employment. Amber had graduated from Oregon State University in 2016 with a bachelor's degree in fisheries and wildlife management. The study of animals was her passion, and she'd hopped from job to job, seeking to fulfill her passion and turn it into a permanent career. Amber's assignment required that she spend hours hiking remote trails all alone. She'd completed specialized training on how to be safe and how to handle animal attacks while in the field. She'd even completed training in similar disciplines as a 16-year-old hunter years before. Amber grew up in Michigan, but had globetrotted with employment assignments in wildlife agencies in Oregon, Missouri, Florida, and Idaho. She made Montana her permanent home, no matter where her assignments took her. On May 17, 2018, Amber had been in the field for 3 days. At around 11 a.m., she just pulled a bundle of hair from one of the barbed wire snags set up for that purpose. She had 3 or 4 more snags to retrieve samples from and was hiking near Poorman Creek, which was surging with loud spring runoff. Typically, Amber would use a whistle to alert bears or other animals to her presence in their territory, or she would stomp her feet as she hiked and clap her hands loudly as she walked between snags. She was well trained in safety measures and practiced them with discipline. Amber wasn't carrying a firearm, but she was carrying her bear spray as she completed her hair collection duties. At one point in her hike, Amber heard a loud and very close woof to her left. She quickly glanced in the direction of the noise and could see a huge grizzly bear, only 12 feet from her. She knew this was a critical point in the confrontation, as she had clearly surprised the bear as much as it had surprised her. She knew the grizzly would either attack her or bolt in the opposite direction, and hoped for the latter. Amber knew that given the proximity of the run-in, her best option was to play dead. She turned to her right and dropped to the ground in the nearest bush, hoping that her backpack might absorb any attack from the grizzly. By the time she did this, she could already feel the grizzly pressing into her back. She could feel a powerful slap from the grizzly bear on her back and its claws tearing into her arm. She reached down to her bear spray, which she had holstered on her hip, and flipped the safety guard off. That is when she felt the bear's teeth clamp onto the back of her skull. The back of her head was the easiest portion of her head to reach for the bear, so that is where it drove its teeth. The bear's canines pierced and fractured her skull, popping her bones and sending fragments of her bones into her brain. As the bear was trying to kill her, Amber defiantly stretched her left arm toward the bear with her bear spray in her hand. She pressed the button on the canister from point-blank range and doused the bear's nose, eyes, and mouth. The irritant also covered the area around Amber and affected her negatively as well. The bear was clearly deterred from continuing its attack on Amber at that point, and disappeared into the brush as quickly as it had appeared. She laid on the ground, trying to gather her senses for a moment. She wanted to make sure the bear had actually left and wouldn't return, so she remained still for a few moments afterward. Amber was carrying a special piece of safety equipment that we've discussed previously on this channel. She used her InReach by Garmin to request help immediately as she rinsed the bear spray from her eyes with her water bottle. She sipped some water and waited for the effects of the spray to wane. Amber slowly gathered her feet beneath her, mustering the courage to stand. As she lifted her head, she searched the brush to make sure the bear had not returned. She knew that bears make nearly no noise, and had not even seen what direction in which the bear had fled. Amber knew that she couldn't stay in bear country while she was injured, and hoped that help would find her before the bear would. She resolved the only situation for her was to try to walk the 2 miles back to her vehicle. As she briskly walked, she tried to assess the extent of her injuries. Her left ear was ringing, and her head hurt badly. Her hat slipped from her head while she was walking, and when she replaced it, she felt the back of her skull. The skin around the grizzly's bite was swollen and misplaced. She knew she had no time to examine it right now, so she bravely pressed on toward her vehicle. While she walked, Amber distracted herself by thinking of artifacts she might find on her hike out. She hoped she might find a nice moose antler shed the prior winter. She did everything she could to make as much noise as she walked to ensure any moose or bears in her area knew she was there. Amber briskly walked for the better part of an hour through snowfields and muddy points in the trail before she finally reached the safety of her truck. She was so comfortable that she had the forethought to stow her backpack before getting some water and pulling a snack from her backpack. Amber knew she needed to do something to slow the bleeding from the grizzly's bite on her head, so she took her sweater and wrapped it around her head. She avoided looking into the mirror so that she wasn't alarmed by the sight and seriousness of her wounds. After getting herself comfortable, Amber turned the key on her truck and began searching for anyone she could find. About 3 miles down the road, the rear license plate of a vehicle invigorated her. Amber honked the horn on her truck and waved her hand out of the window, trying to get the attention of the driver of the vehicle. Eventually, the driver pulled over, and Amber left her truck to chat with the man. She asked him if he could help her get to the hospital, and explained that she had her skull crushed by a grizzly bear. The man quickly agreed to help her and assisted her into his truck. Amber and her rescuer had scantly drove a mile down the road before they saw an ambulance pull into view. They'd been dispatched to answer her request for help sent earlier by her inReach device. The first responders quickly loaded her into the ambulance and began to administer medical care as they sped toward Highway 2. As soon as they reached the highway, Amber was loaded into a medical helicopter and was flown to Kalispell Regional Medical Center in Kalispell, Montana. Once she arrived at the medical center, she was informed that her recovery would take at least 3 months. Her follow-up treatment would take a year. After significant assessment, the grizzly's bite on her skull was not found to have severed any nerves, but did damage muscles in her neck and arm. Amber was found to have lost 95% of the hearing in her left ear. Undaunted as she was, Amber was told the doctor overseeing her treatment would not allow her to return to work immediately, so she was hired back to her former position with the Idaho Fish and Game while she healed. DNA analysis had to be completed to determine if it was a black bear or a grizzly bear that had attacked her. The attack had occurred so quickly that even Amber wasn't sure which species had been the culprit. Following her attack, she says she has even more respect for bears than she had before it. She maintains that this experience will make her a better bear manager and broaden her knowledge and experience from which to draw. After DNA evidence from her attack scene was analyzed, the bear that attacked Amber was found to be a 24-year-old male bear that had been captured previously in 2005. This bear had spent his entire life in the Cabinet Yaak Mountains, which Amber found fascinating. Amber stated that through her experience she had learned a lot about herself. She found it reassuring that she had defended herself and even assisted in her own rescue following her devastating attack. She indicates that she has no regrets following her bear attack. She states that she and the bear spooked each other and doesn't fault the bear for doing what it did to defend itself. Amber's grizzly bear attack was determined to be a defensive attack, and no action was taken against the bear. It had no record of being a threat or nuisance to humans, and was allowed to continue its life unabated. Amber says the bear spray absolutely saved her life. Due to her training on how to properly dispense it, its use was effective, and was the determining factor in her survival. Well, I'm sure that you agree with me in my saying that Amber is the most beautiful and toughest bear researcher in the world. After reviewing the details of this attack, I have a few questions for you. Do you think it ironic that a bear researcher was attacked by a bear? Why do you think Amber wasn't issued a firearm for her protection? What could Amber have done to avoid this attack? Would you return to the field to research grizzly bears after having your skull crushed by one? I know I wouldn't. She's tougher than me. I'll be glad to read and reply to your thoughts, so please post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.